Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Chuck Jones Creative Side chat. Today, it's a great pleasure to have as our special guest, Ben Olson. I'm Andy Turner. I'm sitting at the old Chuck Jones Gallery on Fifth Avenue in downtown San Diego, where in days when we could all get together, this is where we'd walk by as we come out of the convention following ComicCon. Today, it's a great virtual meeting, and it's going to be a lot of fun for the next hour to turn the tables on Ben Olson, who's been hosting all week, and now we get to talk to Ben and hear his creative side. Not only can Ben walk the walk, talk the talk, he can do it all, and he's a great artist in his own right, in addition to being a fun host. It's been my great privilege and honor to meet and get to know Ben as we both serve on the board of the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity. We've had a lot of fun at the board meetings, and Ben's had a lot of creative energy to bring. And today he's going to share some of that with us. So let's take a quick look instead of waiting. Scott Ryder, if we have a quick piece of artwork that Ben has done, we'll see what he can do, and then we'll talk to the man himself. And here comes a Ben Olson original.
Bat Splat.
Bat Splat, and here is the original himself, Ben Olson. Hey, Ben.
Hey, man. Good to see you, buddy.
Live from your studio, huh?
Live from my studio. Yeah, it's a little odd to be on this side of the table instead of the other side of the table.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun as we turn the tables. So this is where you create everything. Give us a quick tour to start us off.
So last time, when we do these things, usually I'm a little all over the place. I had a few other workstations, and with everything that's happened in the world today, we took a little bit different perspective on how the studio could look or should look and what I was doing more of. So what I did was I took out a lot of the production island that was here with multiple workstations. I brought it down to one, and then I've got everything kind of went in view. So from this 500 square feet, I've got about a 4,000 square foot studio and a ball pit for the kids and all kinds of goodies. And then this is my area to play in. So I can design everything here between 3 monitors, and then I've got everything to create art with, including paintings, drawing, and all that kind of good stuff. And my giant Chuck Jones mural in the back. Then I did not paint, Chuck painted. I just printed it on vinyl.
Well, how would you describe your style? I see a number of things going on in the background there.
Well, so I love Maurice Noble and his design, and that was something that caught my eye very early on when I was getting into cartoons. I love the backgrounds. It didn't overtake anything, but it was such a compliment to it. And so my style's a little bit more kind of in his design and what he did, but I want to bring a 3-dimensional element to it. So I like bold colors, but I like softer lines between them when it comes to the oil painting stuff. You can see Dino off in the back. That's more like Peter Max. I love Peter Max, so that his just rich color use and everything like that, I was inspired by from when I was 16, and he was on Arizona tea bottles. Go figure. He had like he had a whole line of stuff, artwork he did with, I think the one that really, like the first one that I saw was the Statue of Liberty, that painting that he did for an Arizona iced tea. And as my boss at Broadway Bagels would attest, I ate more food than he paid me. So he may have lost money on that. I'm not sure. But anyway, I could eat and drink whatever I wanted, and which is probably how I grew to the size that I did. But I love Peter Max. So that's kind of a mix between Peter Max and then line work. I like Salvador Dali stuff, which is kind of, there's a little bit of inspiration too in my oil painting style of there, just in the way he paints. So it's kind of where all that comes from. But I like color.
So you mentioned
color.
Is that what drove you to, you mentioned that you would see backgrounds first. How is that important to the scene and when we look at a painting or a cartoon?
Composition. So what I liked about, if anybody has read the book, The Noble Approach, it's a fantastic book about Maurice and his whole kind of ideology behind design, and especially layout and its composition. So what I love about the layouts and the backgrounds is it would always complement what was going on in the action in the foreground. So if I'm doing my backgrounds right, then I can, you know, like I'm not interrupting, or there's not too many things cluttering up what that main action should look like. So that's why backgrounds were so important, is because it would complement what was going on.
And how does that then influence your painting and work?
Same. So if what I like in backgrounds is I like a certain aesthetic, you know. So if I'm composing something, like I got a few all around here, but there's a work in progress on Pepe Le Pew. Yeah, so this is Heaven Sent that I'm working on currently, and in the composition of the piece itself, she's the main focus, right, Penelope. So everything kind of centers around her, and nothing's really too busy in here, and it's lighter, you know, in tone, so that when I do paint her in black and white, she's very prominent. Same thing with Pepe Le Pew. There's not a ton of busy work going on in the background, and the colors are more contrasty. Then when I get over to the dogs and I start painting this whole side, I'm not interfering. Like there's a good amount of detail and stuff in here, but there's not around the dogs, so I'm not conflicting with what's going on. And you can see, like, this whole thing is we'll intro that in a little bit, but that's how that influences my paintings.
So let's talk a little bit about what brings us here today in Chuck Jones. When did you first become aware of Chuck Jones, and what is your thought about him overall?
Kid and Saturday morning cartoons, right? We had 3 hours of Bugs Bunny, which we should still have Bugs Bunny. I have it all on DVD or downloaded on MP4, so we watch them regularly anyway. But Saturday morning cartoons was my introduction, and they were always the funniest cartoons, and like the humor in it. And it was funny as a kid, and then as I got older, it was even funnier as an adult. So that was my first introduction to Chuck, was cartoons. And you know, my favorites were Robin Hood, Daffy, and Rabbit Fire, and that kind of stuff. It was just hilarious. And so when I got into high school, I was drawing and I wanted to be an animator. Oh, Fabio, what's up, buddy?
Yeah.
Hello to
Fabio, now your best friend. That was a great interview the other day. It looked like both of you guys had a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm gonna take a rabbit hole for 1 second. For just getting to know that guy literally right before the meet, we went on for the interview, and then getting to hear and interact with him, even as a fellow artist. That dude puts like the thought that goes into his work. I came off Friday night thoroughly inspired, as like, man, almost questioning myself of like, what am I doing, you know? And to hear Marcinevo and everything that he's got into his pieces, and how he would talk about those pieces and what was involved. And he's just a super cool guy. Like, he's a down-to-earth guy. You go, you hang out, you create some stuff, whatever, you know. So yeah, I have a super great respect for that man.
Oh,
and
he's always a lot of fun. I've had the good fortune to meet him over the years at some of the Chuck Jones Gallery events. And that's one of the most fun things too, is you can actually meet and sit down with the artist. And the two of you guys just the other night was a whole lot of fun. And I hope he enjoyed it as much as the rest of us did who were watching. And if you only go down one rabbit hole today, Ben, I'd be very disappointed.
It won't be the only rabbit hole, I'm sure.
It won't be. It's like a little like playing whack-a-mole with Ben. So we keep going.
So I'll crawl back out of that one, right? And by the way too, like, so like Fabio, you can still, like, the whole Chuck Jones catalog is on there with Fabio's pieces. And I know my day is all about art, but I'm going to talk about Fabio for a second, because he's got these. Fabio says to give him your bank account number. Sure, 0000000111200.
How about, Ben, you sell your artwork, so that money can then go to buy Fabio's stuff.
I do,
just
because
all go around in a big circle.
It's going to transition, because he has this Stan Lee Marcinevo and this Deadpool Marcinevo pin, and I got to get that, which means like, and there's a couple of pieces that I want. Anyway, all right, climbing back out of the rabbit hole. So I'm in drawing, and I loved animation, and I love the whole movement of things. And I get into high school, and we have, you know, middle school's got a library and whatnot, but high school's got a bigger library. And I had this book which if you're a Chuck Jones fan, or just a storytelling fan, period, or process, like, I got both of these, right? But this was the first one that I picked out. And what struck me, of course, I was always into art and animation books, and I had the Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas one that I was The Illusion of Life, and I'm going through, and then I find
two of Disney's 9 great old men.
Absolutely.
Great book.
There is, I'm going to see if I can find it real quick because I thought I had it marked, but there was a drawing as I was flipping through, and it was all the cartoons that I loved, and it was how he wrote them. Oh, here it is. How he wrote them, and what went into the drawings and the characters and that kind of thing. So the very first drawing I ever did of any Warner Brothers character when I was a freshman in high school was Drip Along Daffy, right? And it turned out to be, this is the first piece I did for Red Dot. I don't even know how many years ago for Red Dot for the Chuck Jones Center. And that was the reason why I picked that, was because it was my very first introduction into Chuck and who this guy was. And I was just absolutely fascinated. So I got to meet the man behind my childhood and the sense of humor and all of those things. And what I loved in here was just, you know, he was teaching me without ever even meeting me.
Ben, so, how was it for you to draw his characters?
Not easy at first because I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, and I would do it, and I drew it, and I drew Drip Along, and it was fine. But the more poses and the more I got into, and you know, he always says you got 100,000 bad drawings, the faster you can get through them. But he was big on life drawing, you know, and understanding that, which is why it was harder for me to draw some of the characters in poses because I didn't understand anatomy correctly. And I wasn't really drawing. I was just drawing cartoons. I was in high school, man. I want to be an animator. What are you going to do? I'm going to draw cartoons all the day. And my parents, bless their hearts, were like, you should probably draw some other stuff like humans and whatnot. I'm like, that's boring. And until I met an animator from Lon Smart. If you're out there, Lon Smart, I still remember you, and I have your autograph thing that you gave me at the Pocahontas tour that went around when they used to do mall tours. And he was like, and I was like, I want to be an animator. And he's like, how's your life drawing? And I'm like, and he's like, you need to learn that. And I said, okay. And I took that word as gospel. And then you get home and you tell your parents, and like, well, we've been telling you that. And I'm like, yeah, right. Parents don't know anything, but like a random animator dude does. So that just goes
oh no, I've met your dad. He knows a lot. I've met your dad.
Does.
He knows. You listen to him, he'll take you places.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the whole thing of like, kids listen to your parents, even if they're not in the same field as you. They might understand a few more things. So that was my first introduction to Chuck, and you know, it's been like I said, it gets funnier the older I get, and then to actually be a part of all this, especially going to his 100th birthday celebration, which Fabio and I were at, but we were ships passing in the night, and it was. I was almost not believing where I was at, you know, where I'm like, I'm in this place with all these cool people, and they're all just cool people, right, who do some fun stuff, and that's awesome. And so it just kind of validated everything.
Well, it is fun. And then when you get to actually draw something that was originated by a person you so admire and then get pulled into the family that way, that must be rewarding to you when other people take a look at your artwork and say, wow, that's cool, or I like that.
Yeah, it's, you know, you're using someone else's, especially you look at like Wiley, Coyote, like Marvin the Martian is a favorite, like he's my favorite, and Wiley, Coyote, and Roadrunner.
No kidding, Ben.
Right? Thank you for wearing that jersey. This, by the way,
is the baseball uniform that you designed for the Schaumburg Boomers that was worn at one of the games for an evening for the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity.
Yes. So here's what would have happened this year. Rabbit hole. Here's what would have happened this year because Bugs turns 80 tomorrow. So birthday eve for Bugs Bunny. If we would have done the Boomers game this year, this was the sketch, and I already have the full color done for the print. This was the Bugs 80th anniversary jersey with custom carat numbers. I've got 5 films in here. I've got What's Opera Doc is on the front.
Oh, that's sweet. That is nice, Ben.
So I sketched this out on, that's a pencil sketch on this, but it's got my thumbnails on here. So I've got like Baton Bunny, I've got Rabbit Fire, which is my favorite, one of my favorites. What's Opera Doc, considered one of the best ever. And I got to look through.
And where might the color version of that be, Ben?
On my computer right now, which I did not give Scott a heads up and send him that image so nobody can see that yet. But think of it as a surprise for hopefully when we do get to do this next year and I can celebrate Bugs' 80th before he turns 81.
The
So
80th in a number
hole.
of days.
Yes, 80th in a
So
number of days.
Very, very, very cool and fun. So then how do you bring that into non-uniform work, some of your paintings?
As far as like Chuck Jones paintings or just my own stuff?
Well, your own stuff. I mean, Chuck, we all know Chuck because of his characters in the cartoons that we loved, but he actually did a lot of fine art as well. And you started a minute ago to talk about some of your fine art drawings. So how did you start and then kind of move over to the characters that we're seeing behind you now?
So I got into, when I was in high school, and I told this story, so I'm not going to tell the same story I did in the first Creativeside chat, but my kindergarten art teacher who was like, you didn't do it right, when I'm coloring outside the lines, layer and stuff, and my 6th grade art teacher who told me I wasn't good enough to be put into 7th grade art, so she didn't, and then my 8th grade art teacher who entered me into all kinds of stuff without me knowing, and I started winning awards, and then encouraged me to use whatever, right? And then my high school art teacher, Mr. Rohde, who just went to town, I got to paint whatever, draw whatever. And so Scott, can you put up the Michael Jordan and the sunset? So the painting, I think you got the image of that one. So when he puts it up, I'll show you. So that when I'm reading what Chuck's doing, right, and doing all this stuff, how that inspires my own work. So when I was 17, I painted Michael Jordan. And notice that he has the number 45 because this was right when he came back. I'm a huge Bulls fan. Like I grew up in the legendary dynasty, and we spray painted the Bulls symbols on our basketball court, like that was it. So yeah, hold on this one for a second. So this was the cover of a Sports Illustrated when he came back. Now so I painted this. This is a 4 foot by 4 foot oil painting. And
Ben, that's incredible. Looks almost photographic.
Thanks, man. I had a blast with this. Now, obviously, he comes back as 45, so I'm painting him as 45. The one difference, so you got Reggie Miller going up for the, to block, and that's not going to happen. And I think Mark Jackson, I think that's who's in the bottom corner. But you see Dennis Rodman. Well, in the cover, that was actually B.J. Armstrong. So by the time I painted
little
this,
creative license.
Yes, I did. And so I painted Dennis Rodman in because I found him to be he was a character. So you got his tattoo and stuff in there. And then, so I wanted to learn how to paint, like I can paint cartoon style, right? And that's cool. But the validation for me as an artist is, can I paint realistic? You look at any of the greats and Picasso's and, all those guys, they learn how to do that first. And I'm not comparing myself to Picasso, by the way, but they learn how to paint realism, and all that. And they learn the rules, and then they could bend and break the rules. So even in that sunset one with the waves crashing and that kind of thing, that is another artist. I took kind of a blend of some stuff, and for the life of me, man, I wish I could remember the dude's name, but he knows James Coleman. They all know each other, and I was so fascinated with how he lit things. So like Rob Kaz does a way better job than I do on these things. But
well,
he
wait
has
a minute, Ben. When you said you're not comparing yourself to Picasso, there is a Ben Olson Cubism series and a Wiley Picasso, if I am not mistaken, my friend.
Well, there is. So yes, which I think you might own. I loved how that translates into this pop art, fine art stuff is learning that and then bending and breaking the rules for that. So I have one left out of that series of 5 with Bagasso, and it's Bully for Bugs, and he's all, it's a Picasso thing where things are all over the place. Noses are here, eyes are there, kind of stuff. But that's how that influenced that. So I wanted to I loved painting like that Jordan style. I had a Batman that I did, like that thing I did when I was 16. Here, I'll grab that.
While you're doing that, Ben, it looks like the Dino has a little bit of that Picasso. And
a little bit.
If I'm not mistaken, your artwork is up at chuckjonescatalog.com under a link, conveniently enough, Ben Olson. So we can probably see a lot of this artwork
you can see what's available still. Yeah. And thank you for plugging that. So I did this when I was 16 based off a cover in a comic book magazine.
Ben, it's not me plugging it. I need you to get money to give to Fabio. Remember.
You do.
That's your goal.
I can't give him my bank account number, but I do need to I do need to make a little bit of money to pay for Fabio's pieces because I want that Stan Lee and that Deadpool pin. So I did this when I was 16, and this was part of my college portfolio. Jordan was part of my college portfolio, and I needed to learn how to do all that stuff so that I could carry that through in other pieces. So it never went away. It's kind of a validation, like, can I actually do this? It's a challenge. Yes. All right. Awesome. So yes, ChuckJonesCatalog.com / is it Ben-Olson or just Ben Olson? It is. It's Ben-Olson. So there's my Dino. I think we have a few pieces.
So how do compare this one though? The Jordan looks so much like a photograph, and then you have this, which looks much more of a pop art feel to it. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between the two in terms of how you approach the pieces.
So what I like about this style is I love stripes. I love vibrant, saturated colors, right? That Peter Max kind of influence. And I love line weight. So messing with those two and having the line weight become kind of like not just something that outlines something, but like a kind of a character.
Tell us what you mean about what is line weight, Ben.
Going from like thick to thin, right? So it's a thin line to thick line. And if I'm adjusting my line weight, you know, in the painting, like you can see there in the sun, it goes from thick to thin. You can see it on his nose, and notice that in all the lines, none of them stay the same width through the entire line. They're adjust all over the place. So I love line weight, and this was a way for me in a pop art style to do something in saturated colors. Like I don't know if we have Picasso up there, but this was a way for me to do something in that. That I love the Picasso line that I did. I want to do a few more because like Devasso is still one of my all-time favorites. That all of them are gone. You have Wilasso, and then the only one left is Picasso.
Well, up at ChuckJonesCatalog.com in the Ben Olson section, I see that there's Villains Yosemite Sam that kind of has that look, and a Villains Wiley Coyote. Are those two in that line?
I'm gonna pull this up on the other monitor. Yes.
Oh, you should visit that website, Ben.
I should visit that website.
Stuff on it. I would.
Good night.
I highly recommend that to you.
I highly recommend it also, and yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And I do see Picasso on there too.
Holy crap! Hey, you know what I didn't know is Bat Splat is limited edition. That's cool.
See, Ben, they're all things that you can learn. You just have to go to the website.
I just gotta visit it.
You'll see. Yeah.
You can all have the same reaction I did. And yeah. Sweet mercy. All right, that's cool. So yeah, I love the villain series, the profiles of a villain. I loved, and then I've got What's Opera Doc is up there. I love, so the What's Opera Doc is in oil painting, is always in this style. Oh yeah, so this is my bully for bugs.
This one, yeah, talk to me about this one, Ben. This looks pretty cool.
Here's what I love. Chuck is hugely famous for a lot of things, right? Timing is one of them. Timing. And so what I love about, it's starting with a series. There's two pieces. Bat Splat is one, and Olay, this one, is another one. And it's that moment right before the main action, right? And it's stuff that you laugh at every single time because you know it's coming. And so the bull, he knows it, which is why he's got that look. That wick is almost to the barrel, and boom goes the dynamite. So what I wanted in that look,
Ben, that look that he's giving us, you know, he knows that he knows that something's coming in a second.
Yeah, it's over. So, you know, when Bug says, you know, this means war, as he gets ejected out of the stadium, this is the win for that. So I've got here. Let's show the piece live. I've got this that I literally finished yesterday. Let me pull. So in the piece, we've got, yeah, it's a little bit different, you know, in here as far as what I can see on the screen. So what I wanted the feeling of the bigness of the stadium. Like you're in this arena, it's a big deal. All eyes are what's going down here. This is kind of like my signature cloud, you know, wispy cloud, puffy, cotton ball-y things. And I went through and I looked at a whole bunch of different like bullfighting stadiums in Spain and pulled little things out, but I wanted the whole audience. So in the cartoon, you know, it's like dark browns and then little highlights on bumps. Well, I wanted to do something a little bit different that was out of focus. So you have this entire crowd of people all, you know, wearing different things, and you've got the barnwood, you know, style, which is what I kept wanting to do, barnwood, like painted barnwood in here. And then this is the moment where Bugs wins. Now, obviously, he's not like this in the cartoon until, you know, later, but like this encapsulates the whole thing. Like he's won, he knows it, stuff's going down, he's gonna blow up, and thank you for all the roses. So this one is 16 by 20, I think, but it's one of my, and if you notice, 2 whiskers, not 3, which means they did not have the budget for 3 whiskers. They only had the budget for 2. So I kept to the I kept true to the cartoon.
So how did you decide though to make the bull with just that exact look that we can all see, or at least I felt it when we were looking at it, that bull is looking right at us and he knows what's coming.
And that's what I want in the Wait For It series, right? The Wait For It series is the character, you know, like in Bat Splat, well, I'll just pick it up off the canvas. In Bat Splat, it's the same thing where they're looking right at you, right? You know, and they know something, like, except for Bat Splat, he has no idea.
So Ben, here's what I'm hearing. There's more than just Bully for Bugs.
So here's Bats. Yeah, this is the second, but Bully for, or Olay is the first. And it's the Wait For It, right? So it's the moment right before the thing happens, and he is going right into the cliff, right? And he's giving you that look just like the cartoon, and it's true to the cartoon, where it was, you know, it's just hilarious, and as soon as he hits it, you just start laughing.
Now, if we're talking about the Wait For It series, it seems to me there's something behind you that looks like Wiley Coyote might be waiting for you, something. Okay. Just behind you, Ben. What's going on there?
So here's what I love about Wiley Coyote and Roadrunner. I love the setting that they're in, right? You know, if you take them out of the Southwest, does it feel the same? No, it doesn't, because the chase is there. So do I ever really, and other than in the sketches that I have, Scott, can you do my overhead cam real quick while I grab Scenic Falls? So other than like what we have here, which the Stupor Duck and Wiley Batsuit, notice they're not in Superman and Batman costumes. They're true to what they are. And what we have going on, that's an Alex Ross, Jim Lee collaboration, right? And then there's something that I wanted in the stances where I can use these characters in their actual costumes, and I can put them in the comic versions of that, because I think I want to nerd out on that. So that whole lighting that comes up is like, I'm no Alex Ross. I've gotten to meet him and hang out for a bit, and he's a super awesome, talented guy. And by the way, if you haven't seen his new documentary yet, it just came out and you should totally watch it. But that's the only time where I would take Wiley Coyote out of his environment, right, is in the bat suit, because that makes sense. All right, sure. Scott, you can roll back here.
All right, now let's look at this.
So Scenic Falls, right? Teal, because that's my color. So my edges are teal. So here's what I wanted in this. The falls that he takes, right? Right? You can't not crack up at that every single time. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to put the things that he's doing in these settings that I'm using actual footage or actual, you know, like photographs in places in the Southwest. So I wanted to do this Southwest style, like, and you know, I've got the water. If you look at a waterfall, and I've got the picture, I don't remember exactly where it's from, but I was kind of using it as a reference. All the background where the water is kind of falling off, you know, the mist would come off, you get all these little marks. I love the color and the balance of color between like the teals and the maroons and the purples and the browns and the beiges. So I've got him going off in this gorgeous waterfall setting, right? It's beautiful, and there he goes, right? Which is why it's Scenic Falls, right? As he's just taking the dive. And Roadrunner, it's probably my favorite Roadrunner that I've done, is this dude. And
that's awesome. And I feel, Ben, if we could look up another foot or two, there would be this enormous anvil about to fall on his head. That's probably just out of camera view now. Am I right?
Yes, just about right here. So I had, like, I loved the cliff rock work and stuff. It's the same thing as the bat splat, you know, and even in the Coyote itself, like I was happy with how I did that. And I don't mean that as a self-congratulatory thing. I think any artist, when they're going through things, they tend to, like, I question stuff all the time, because I will never be great. I think I'm good and I will aspire to be great. But if I ever get to great, that's like a plateau. Where do you go from there? And you never stop learning.
Let me congratulate you then, if you don't want to congratulate yourself. That piece is awesome. The colors
Thanks,
there.
man.
Once again, Wiley's staring right at you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned as an artist, how do you feel that a piece is ever done? Or if you ever look at something later, do you always want to change or see something that you'd fix? Talk about that creative process.
So yes. When I got to the point, can you ever think if it's done? No, you just have to stop. So I could keep going. There's other stuff that I could keep doing to this and whatnot, but it would never end. And I don't know if it would necessarily look any better than what I had initially planned out. So are you ever done? You just have to stop. There just has to be a stopping point where you feel comfortable stopping. Now, and I love this piece. I love the colors in it. It's very much my colors.
It is awesome. Thanks for bringing that up to the front.
Yeah, man. So
and look at that,
here.
Ben. Did you know it's on ChuckJonesCatalog.com at the Ben
Olson
I
heard they had a site. And look at that. There you go. Scenic Falls. So
tell you though, the seeing it live though is awesome. The catalog, the internet version looks extremely cool. You get the feeling, but you holding that up with the extra dimension, turning it, the teal on the side, is phenomenal. So I'll congratulate you again. You don't have to congratulate yourself.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, so there, you know, that one's done. Olay, done. I can come back to anything though. Like think of George Lucas and Star Wars, right? That dude could probably go back and he's continually fixing stuff. I could go back and I could do something a little bit different, or I can see a progression and be like, man, like I look at stuff earlier that I did and I'm like, why did I do it that way? But you don't know any better, right? You only know what you know in the time, and you do that and then you learn from those things. And that doesn't mean what you did before is any less. It's just where you were. So I have a stopping point, and when I stop, we put down and we're done, and then we move on and I move to the next piece. And what I love about the originals on anything, I have museum and gallery wrap pieces. So if you get any of my pop art stuff like you've got, you notice that on the sides of the pop art, if it's a museum or gallery wrap, I paint the continuation of the lines around the side. On my, well, I put it up on the thing already. What you can see on the sides is teal, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of striping line up the teal, so that'll be like a little finish, which the originals will have, but I don't think the limiteds will have. But
so let's back up a little bit. When you were just talking about the finishing. How about when you start? What is the creative process for you? How do you start a piece? Do you sketch it out first? Do you move right to canvas? Talk to me a little bit about your creative process, Ben.
All right, so good question. I'm going to show you.
Hey, I'm allowed process. One per show here.
So I go through and I sketch stuff out. And by the way, what I wanted to say too is, for anybody that wants to purchase, I don't care what it is, if it's a limited edition or an original. And I did this before. Scott, do me a favor real quick. Put up the 4 sketches if you could, please. And then I'm going to come right back to this. So if you purchase an original or a limited edition, if it's a limited edition, you pick whatever character you want. Yeah, can you put that up, Scott? You can pick whatever character you want, and I will sketch it on 12F Acme punched animation paper. So all of these people bought something, and they told me what they wanted. So I did a Taz, I did Marvin disintegrating Daffy Duck, I did Marvin with where is the Ludium, Q34, right? And
definitely, Ben.
make me very angry. And so, and then somebody wanted Wiley, Coyote. Now they just kind of said, I like this character. And then I came up with the scene stuff. So Wiley's looking through his Acme catalog while sitting on a box of TNT. I don't know what would happen from that. But anyway, if you buy a limited or an original, you can pick the character. I'll sketch it for you in Blackwing pencil and then ship it. Or if you get the original, all right, Scott, you can come back to me. If you get the original, you can, now I haven't done these things before, as you can tell. So if you get the original, you'd have the option of one or the other. You could pick your own character, or I have all the concept sketches. I do them all now. I used to do some on iPad and then I would send those, but I really like I want the tactile feel. So like this is Scenic Route. And as you can see, it's wider because originally I was going to start it wider, but it made more sense. And when I wanted the composition to go longer. So that's the original that got approved. This is Heaven Sent. It's on Bristol board, and then it's blue, photo blue pencil with Blackwing over the top, so you can kind of see what the composition is there. That's a sketch, and then what I'm going to attempt to start painting live is Scenic Route. This is 18 by 36. It's
another awesome looking piece. I can see the beginnings of it, Ben.
This is an actual scene from the Grand Canyon, obviously not the Roadrunner and Wiley Coyote, but this is an actual location. So I'm going to paint that in my style. And then and he's going right off the edge and he's not looking at you, he's looking down. But so you can pick, if you buy the original, you can either pick the concept sketch and I will send that to you, or you can pick a character of your own. It's totally up to you. So anyway, back to what you were saying. How do I get through these things? So here's like Olay. I love the sketch for this one. So you can see in the sketch for this, here's my concept sketch. I know what my composition is going to be and how that turns out. The only difference is in here, I had the wick too long in my concept sketch, so I shortened it up to here because that made more sense in the painting. So that was the change. But I'll sketch these things out. Here's Bat Splat. So if you buy the original Bat Splat, I'll include the concept sketch if you want it, or draw you whatever you want. But this was the concept sketch for that. Notice there was no Roadrunner initially. That was a request as I was pulling that off. Hey, could you do that? And I said, sure. And then, well, I think that's it for those. So that's how that process works. I just got to sketch the idea. And oftentimes, I'll show you. So I did a whole thing on Penelope because I'm trying to draw stuff out and I had never really drawn her before. So I'm just going off Warner Brothers model sheets and sketching things out so that I can understand and get kind of like a muscle memory on how she looks and stuff like that so that I can paint it. So this is Blackwing on animation, 12F punched animation paper. If you buy Heaven Sent,
Blackwing, of course, everybody's favorite pencil, right?
Everybody's favorite pencil, Chuck Jones. So, you know, there's that, but that's how my process works. I got to sketch out the idea. I've got to come up with the concept. I don't have my little piece of paper over here, but I have and I write it down on what the idea is. And then I'll go from there and sketch it out. And then I send it to Robert and Scott and they tell me if it's a go or no go, or if they've got notes. And then I'll adjust to the notes that they have and start the piece.
And what about colors, scenes? Do you look through like the falls that you were showing before? Where do the falls come from? Pictures that you've seen, or do you kind of create the background or concept in your head?
I can see it in my head, but like in the concept sketch, I can see how I want things to go. I don't necessarily know what that back looks like. Like if you look in Scenic Falls and the way the colors blend together in the background. So the foreground cliffs, but that background that's just kind of like running water for centuries, right? I don't exactly know what I'm thinking in that. And yeah, Scott, could you put that up real quick? So in this instance, I was looking at different waterfalls, and what I wanted the cascading ones that kind of had rock walls that were concave and had water, like not huge dumping falls, but stuff that was spilling over. And they had this look to the back. So then I'm blending colors that I want to kind of create that effect, but I'm using that. I love Monet and Impressionism. So I'm constantly looking at how those guys, my first experience seeing a Monet in person was euphoric, because it's one thing to see it in a picture. It's another thing to stand within feet of it and actually look at how he painted the layers, you know, and the colors that he chose and the shadows. Doesn't use black. He uses every other color. So if in my stuff, I don't think really ever, unless it's part of a character or an actual part of the thing, I don't use black to shade. I'll use, if I'm using yellow, I'll use purple, you know, or orange, I'll use purple. If I'm using red, I'll use green and blue, and I'll mix colors to make more of like rich shading than I will just straight up black.
So let me just jump for 1 second, because I know you also do a lot of teaching, especially through the Chuck Jones Center and the Backyard Experience for our friends in Chicago. What is the difference when you're the artist versus the teacher? How do you approach that, Ben?
Okay, so real quick, someone bought Olay already. So this is the concept sketch for Olay to whoever just bought that. And if you would like it, it's yours. I think I've signed it already, and I will ship it. So whoever bought Olay, if you would like this, it is all yours. So teacher to student stuff. I think my experience as a student was crappy in kindergarten and 6th grade, right? Great in 8th grade and high school. So I take from that, and I take from just the stories I would read from Chuck. And then at some other point, like when Craig and I are on something, we're going to tell the Disney, how we got into Disney feature animation and all the way to the director's floor, and like the full story, and mind melting, right? And my point to that is Byron Howard, who's one of the directors, he was influenced by Chuck, and Chuck was very giving, right? He would pour into people, and it wasn't the no crushing, right? The soft yes, it was this way of encouraging people. So art is very subjective, and if I'm teaching technique, I can instruct on technique. But if I'm allowing for imagination and figurativeness and everything else to come through, I'm not judging any of that. I'm asking them how, like, tell me about this. I want to know more about what they're going into, because I may not be seeing what they're doing, and I don't want to squash that and be like, well, is that an elephant? And they're like, no, that's a whatever thing, you know. And then you're like, oh, and so I'm putting my guess, you know, like what I think it is on that, when it's not something that they meant that way. And especially in kids, I get a lot of adults that come in for when we were doing like Saturday morning cartoons and drawing, and they're like, well, I used to draw, you know, and this kind of stuff. But usually the vast majority were art teachers that were the main discouragement point for kids, because they weren't doing things correctly. And
well, it's also that's sort of the opposite of creativity. If somebody else is telling you that something is wrong, that's not allowing your own creativity to come out.
Right. Well, and that's what we want to do. So I've taught a lot of classes since March, when we started this whole thing, both for the Schaumburg Library here and then for Chuck Jones, when we do our weekly stuff. And we got a pretty good regular following of kids, which is awesome. But it's always to encourage, like, tell me, you know, like, you'll sketch something, Andy, and I'll be like, that's awesome, man. I'm like, all right, tell me what that is. And then you'll explain to me what that is. And then I'll be like, all right, what do you like about that? And then you tell me what you like about that. I'm like, is there anything you would change or anything you find difficult? And then maybe you don't. And then I leave it, but maybe you do. Well, you know what? I can't really get this right. It's the feet. I don't really get feet. How do you do that? And then at that point, I'm invited into some instruction on technique, but I have not messed with the idea. So as an artist, teaching, right, that I bring my own, you know, I bring my own kind of past and experience with it to understand that how do I remember being treated in the good and bad things, and then how does that work? So that's the difference between teaching and I love it, by the way, because I can't tell you the amount of kids, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids and more over the last 3 or 4 months that I've had the pleasure to interact with. And what an inspiration is for me to hear and watch these kids do stuff, and then just use their imagination and then explain stuff, especially when they're cooped up, you know, and this is like a main outlet, like, just get it out. Nobody's telling them it sucks or it's bad. They're just, hey, that's cool. Let me hear about this. And they're just able to unload and unwind in that. And I think that's phenomenal. So I love that part. I thoroughly enjoy teaching.
Well, and it has to be good feeling for you to get some of that feedback too. And when hopefully some encouragement that you give shows a little difference in that picture, or somebody coming back to work with you more on a piece, right?
Yeah, I had, we've got some great teachers, Lee and Naleen and Rhiannon, Mike that was teaching and stuff too. And what I love and what I try to share with them is if I hear comments come back, and I know like the kids that like I did some free stuff and I sent some free stuff out and kids could pick some stuff and that kind of thing. And I would hear back an email when I emailed the person or when they sent the form in, and there was some super awesome comments that come back, and it's not about you, right? The Chuckism of never take yourself, but do take your work seriously, but never yourself. And so it's not like an ego boost. It's more of just like there's an impact there and they're enjoying it and you feel good about that because something's being absorbed, and they're going to take it and run with it and do something. So yeah.
No, it's that interaction too. I had the good fortune to know Chuck, and the only thing that I ever saw that annoyed him was somebody who said, "Oh, I can't draw." And
right.
then he, of course, as you said before, always said everybody has a million good drawings in them. You just have to get out the first couple of million until you get to the good ones. And so he would encourage people, especially somebody said they couldn't draw. He said, well, Bugs is really just 4 circles and a hand attached to a carrot. And he'd encourage you to draw with him. And when I did that with him, I ended up with 4 circles and a stick, and he ended up with a perfect Bugs. But anyway, that leads me back to you. I think at one point you said you were going to try to do a little live painting for us. Do you have that set up?
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking. Yeah, I am. So
well, let me just dump that on you then, like the big anvil.
Please do. Yeah. So as I'm setting up here, apparently Picasso sold also, which is awesome. So that means the Picasso line currently needs some extra characters because there's no more left. All right, I'm gonna set this up. So all right, there we go. I'm gonna go scenic route, and I'm gonna start scenic route because scenic route is literally going from scratch. It is just the sketch on the canvas. And what's important to this is I'm gonna start with the sky. So I have a way.
So we're literally at the beginning of this, Ben. Doesn't look looks like you've got something sketched. Can you just describe that? It's not showing up great on the camera.
Yeah, and it shouldn't, because it's non-photo blue pencil. So in here, and I'll try to like back off a little bit so you can see. You can see some lines in here, and that sketch that I pulled out, which you don't have to, I will show you. You don't have to put it up on screen so that you can reference what I'm doing. So here's my reference, right? This is my reference drawing, and that's my layout. And then I'm about to do, you can see kind of like the cliff right in here, and there's some sky. I'm gonna start with the sky, and we're gonna see if I can do this. So usually, and you can keep it up on there for a second, Scott, if you want to. Usually, unless it's like, Scott, do you have the What's Opera Doc piece, the oil painting? I don't know if you do or not, and if you don't worry about it, because I didn't ask you ahead of time. What's Opera Doc is a pink sky.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, dude. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. What's Opera Doc is a pink sky, but it's still done in this kind of tones. And usually, because as you know, in a skyline, it's lighter at the horizon than it is above you. So I use Naples yellow light, and in my blue sky, cerulean blue and turquoise light. All right.
Now this is a good artist, Ben, because we never just have blue or brown or yellow.
No. So here's I've been painting for the last 2.5 weeks. And all of my Olay is in here, Scenic Falls is in here. I've got my Robin Hood.
I can see it.
Yeah. Can you see that in there? Yeah. All right. So here, let's just start.
You've out Picasso'd Picasso on that one, Ben.
Thank you. I've got Wiley and Roadrunner. And the only reason I have them in here right now is for a reference on where they at, because I'm going to end up painting right over him. And here we go. All right. So usually I'll start with the turquoise light and like really, really layered on. So I usually have to use a lot. And the beginning is turquoise light. And as I move through and get it all on here. I feel like Bob Ross a little bit, and not that I should have had a fro because my hair is receding and I could use a wig. But happy little trees, right? So I'll get my base layer down. What I love about working in oils with this style specifically is the ability that I have for days to manipulate it, right? Now I've watched Tim Rogerson, and that dude has like a wet palette for acrylics, and it allows him a longer time to work on acrylics. I don't know if I can necessarily work like I did in oils on it, but
now more name dropping with another cool artist who you know. Tim was on the other day, did a great job.
On the other day. Him and Ari has got some. Ari is the publisher of Marvel Fine Art, and he's got some incredible stories from him and Stan Lee. We did a whole tribute. I got to get more paint. So I'll start with this as my base. So my turquoise light is usually always my base. Except
now, to be hyper technical, Ben, what kind of paint are you using, and do you change paint for different pieces?
Yeah, so I like golden acrylics. I like the brand Golden for acrylics. I actually like the Blick brand. So Blick Art Materials, which I have one right down the street, and I get all of my supplies there. I spend a fair amount of money at Blick, and Emily is fantastic. Those guys they've helped us out with what we've done for programs with the center and events and stuff like that, and they're just cool people, and they take my money without hesitation for art supplies. So
we've now learned of 2 places or people that will take your money today.
Yes.
Very productive.
Fabio will get my bank account, and Blick Art Materials will get my credit and debit cards. So I shop there a lot.
And excuse me, Scott, do not put Ben's credit card up on the screen. Thanks.
Yeah, that would be super. All right, so I'm painting over Wiley. I'll draw him back in later, and so that
when you draw him back in, do you literally draw him, or once it's underneath, it's underneath?
Yeah, I can't.
How do you go about that
usually? So I can't see it once I paint over. Like right now, I can't see where he is. So, but what I have done is I'm not as good as Rob Kaz at this. I'm name dropping again. Rob Kaz can paint over and get all his characters roughed in without even really sketching them on the canvas, and it boggles my mind. I love watching his process videos. So what I'll do is I will either sketch them in like I did on Scenic Falls, or on this one, because the background is going to be as scenic as it is, I will project my drawing back onto this, and then I will sketch it out. So is that cheating? No, it's not.
Because who says? Who's right to determine that?
But if I don't, it just helps me when I'm getting my composition down and making sure that my characters are right, especially with this, because when I'm done, I'll have painted the entire background, and it should look like the Grand Canyon in my style. And here's the fun part about this is I'm adding, and you can kind of see it. Here, I'm gonna move this over just a hair. Maybe the lighting is a little bit better. You can kind of see there you go. You can see the Naples yellow, and as I'm moving up, but so
are those mixed on, where do you mix that to get that color, Ben?
I'm mixing it on the canvas. So on here is my turquoise light, and then here is my Naples yellow light, and then this is my cerulean, which will be the upper part of the sky. And I'm not mixing them on the palette. I'm just mixing it on the canvas. And because I've got what I've got going on here, I'm going to build the clouds in. And so I'm just going to try to rough this in fast so that I can show you how the clouds work. But the color scheme on this also makes sense with the position of the character. So when you see the final product of Scenic Route, you'll notice that on the Roadrunner side, it is warmer tones, right? Like underneath him, like this is all warmer tones, greens and browns, and and on this side is more, it's in the shadow, so it's reds and purples and into the rock, because like red, like one is in a good place, one is not in a good place. So what I found in the image that I'm using as a reference for my background turned out to be super convenient with the coloring as far as when I looked at it, which is what inspired me to do that image. All right, so anyway, there's that, right? You got a little up here. I don't know how well you can see that.
Well, it's looking like a
there's-
sky to me.
It's looking like we're getting there. So anyway, I'll end up doing like this, right? And because I know I've got clouds on here, I'll try to work some stuff in and show you that while my brush sits in turpentine. So I've got white because the painting is as wet as it is. And maybe if I tilt it this way, I can get a little bit less of that light source in. There we go. Tilt it back. There we go. All right, so in here, like if I go back to my sketch, I've got like a big billowing cloud kind of coming off the side there. So I'm gonna take my white, and all I'm gonna do is start to work shapes in, and I don't know how well you can see that here. Let me pull my Thor's hammer is holding up my iPad. So I'll continue to work my shape in this case, it's a very big head of the cloud. And as I'm working that in, what I like about doing it this way, instead of leaving a white space and then trying to do the clouds, is this makes it feel a lot more a part of the actual background. So, and then I'll keep building on this. So I'll just keep layering, and then I'll layer and layer, and then I'll get it to a point where, let's see, do I have, I'm gonna squeeze around here and show you it'll get to the point where I've got this.
So that's wild how it goes from the blank canvas to the blue and the yellow that we've seen just put into more or less the final product there.
Yeah,
that's incredible, man.
So I'll have some background clouds that are a little bit in the distance, like here. These two big billowing clouds on this side and this side are actually going to be far more like this in here. Well, actually a little bit more like this and in softer, but it's going to have some brighter highlights. So when I'm done, that whole cloud plume in the back in the sky will take this kind of effect to it. And they're all, the clouds are all different. Nothing's ever the same, but that'll be what that is.
That's so incredible. Now, I'm assuming this piece, can you finish in about three minutes when we wrap
up? No.
Or will we put it up on chuckjonescatalog.com once it's all finished?
Yes,
for everybody to see?
This and Heaven Sent will be up on chuckjonescatalog.com when it's finished, which I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but it won't be too long from now. So I'm very excited to see, if I'm able to pull this off, which let's hope that I am, and how that comes out, because something about the painting, if I cannot see it in my head, if I can't see it beforehand with nothing on the canvas, I have a very hard time actually producing the piece, and in most times I won't even do it because I can't see how it's coming out. So I can visualize things before they happen, and that's what enables me to kind of continue or stop or whatever. But if I can't see this ahead of time, forget it.
So is that even before you do the sketch, Ben? You have to see or have a vision first?
Yes. When I do the concept sketch, I can already see in my head how it's going to come out, and that's why it makes it very comfortable then when I do my transition to canvas, because I'll work the color out. I don't have a fear of that. I'll work the color out. It'll happen, and I'm not afraid of that. But because I can see it in my head. If I couldn't see or visualize how this would look and feel when I'm done, this would give me all kinds of problems. So I can already see this as a finished painting, essentially, which is maybe slightly neurotic, but whatever.
No, that's pretty cool that you have the idea or the vision even before you finish. But do you often change the color, since the sketches that you've shown us are not in color, and obviously the finished products are, but do you already have the color in your mind when you're sketching?
I know, so in the case of Scenic Falls, I knew how I wanted to do it. I just I did not know when I got to that background and that blend of colors. So when I did you'll see the shots of teal in there. And here, I'll show you. Well, you don't have to show it if you want to. The shots of teal and pulling stuff in, I literally, it was an accident. Scott, if you can bring up Scenic Falls real quick, it was an accident, and like the happy accidents from Bob Ross. And what happened was, yeah, if you can bring that one up real quick. So, and what I loved about it was it made me feel really good. So that big shot of teal right there to the top, just above Wiley and to the left, that was an accident on my brush because I didn't realize I pulled as much as I did, and I went up and I was like, oh! And then so I went back with some like ochre yellow and started kind of blending that in, and I was like, oh, and then I liked it, and I'm like, and so what I did was I did more highlights of that kind of teal in the background because I loved how that felt, and that cooled it down in the background for me because it was a little too warm with some of the browns and ochres and stuff I was using. And that allowed the foreground to pull more. So, you know, happy accidents, Bob Ross.
It works, Ben. It works. And I have to tell you, our time here has absolutely flown by. And I want to let you get back to painting on that phenomenal piece so that we can all see it when you finish up. Do you have a couple of last words maybe before we wrap up? And I know, again, at chuckjonescatalog.com, the Ben Olson link, we can see a number of other works that you've done, but for today, maybe a couple of quick closing thoughts before you get back to painting.
Yes. So to give you an idea, like I just started that, right? I had sketched it out. My whole process takes a while. So it's usually weeks. And if you were to combine all the time into one, it takes quite a while to pull these things off. So just the time and effort that goes in is extensive, which is awesome that I have the time right now to do that. Two, I want to, there was a question of, is Marvaso coming? Marvaso already showed up, but Marvaso was a red dot painting, and that's how it started, that whole thing. So there is a Marvaso, and it's a 12 by 12, but I kind of want to redo that a bit in a different format. So we'll see if that comes out. And
was that Steampunk Marvin?
No.
Or that was a whole other different
one. Marvaso was what started the Picasso line. I want to thank the Chuck Jones Gallery, Scott, Robert, Craig, Linda, you know, everybody that's involved. Scott Ryder,
Mike, Tashi, don't leave out. You know.
I'm not Carol, you know, Joel, Fiaco, all you guys. To get to do this, right? I wanted to do animation when I was a kid, and I realize now that that wouldn't have been the right path for me anyway, because I have to do different things, and that would have been more of a one note thing for me to do, which would have frustrated me. Scott, if you can put up the scrolling images, that would be cool, because I'm gonna plug a few of these here real quick. So to get to be able to do the stuff that you're seeing here, for people to grasp that, take that, find a place, is awesome. And it's such a humbling experience, because I'm just creating, and the fact that people find something in that means a lot to me, as just a human being, which is why I, you know, try to do as much as possible for people that collect your paintings, or your artwork, and find something involved in it, and that we all share this love of Chuck and these characters, right, that we all, you know, we grew up with. That still, there's the bat symbol, see, haha, there's a bat as a symbol. Yes, look at that,
there it is.
So there's, you know, this kind of thing that we're all, you know, getting to be a part of. I just love it, and I appreciate all of these people that I've got to work with. Carol, I love you too, dear. And so it's been a blessing, and I say that in no small way. It's been an absolute blessing. Andy, you know, getting to know you, and you know, the rest of the board, but specifically you, because you and I have a kind of our relationship runs a little deeper as it's grown over the years. And I just have such a respect for all of this. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to play in your universe, which is the universe that I get to grow up in, and create all this stuff and nerd out and wear a Thor shirt for ComicCon week, because it's freaking ComicCon week, and we would all be in San Diego. But I'm glad that we all got to be here.
Well, we all will be together again at one point soon, but thanks a lot for allowing us to switch the tables on you. Ben, thanks for all of your help this week. Thanks for sharing some of your creative process with us, as always. and now get back to painting, because I know a lot of people who are going to want to see the finished product, and we'll see who the lucky one is who gets to take it home. So thanks a
give me
lot.
till,
It's been a lot of fun.
My pleasure, dude. And thank you, Andy, for you know, I know we were joking around about this earlier, but I'm like, if there was anybody who was gonna pull this down, you were the guy. So, and I love the jersey.
And you almost finished without dude once. All right, thanks a lot.
You're right. You're welcome, dude.
All right,
later, man.
thanks to both Scotts too for putting this together.
Yes.
And a
Thank
big
you,
hello to
Scott.
Robert. Thanks.
We can say hello to everybody. Yes. Take care, guys.